A lot of brass and wind players presume that circular breathing is an advanced technique. It's quite a tricky technique. I'm hoping that the explanation in this video is going to show you that it's actually not that difficult to achieve. First of all then, an explanation of what circular breathing actually is. Now, woodwind and brass players are limited in a way because they need their breath to be able to make the sound. Inevitably, that means that we've got to take a breath in, and when we're taking that breath in, we're not able to make a sound on our instrument. Now, circular breathing gets around that by forming a consistent sound all the time. So there's not a chance for us, we don't need to take a breath. We can constantly make a sound on the instrument without needing to break it up to take a breath. Another thing I'm going to do in this video is circular breathe all the way through it. Now, I'm not going to be able to do that and explain how to do circular breathing. So I'm going to wait until I've edited this video and put it together, and then I'm going to circular breathe for the entirety of this explanation. Now, this is the very start of making this video, so I have no idea how long it's going to be. So we'll just have to see how long I'm going to have to hold that note on for. So the way that I think of circular breathing is creating another set of lungs in my mouth to give me chance to take a breath. So what I want you to try to start with is filling your cheeks up with air and just blowing out the air that you've collected in your cheeks. You want to chop off the back of your throat so no air is going to continue coming out of your mouth. Fill your cheeks with air and then just blow out the air that's in your cheeks like this. So there shouldn't be much air, that you can't really hold much air in your cheeks, and it's that air that forms this second pair of lungs. The next thing to do is, while you're blowing the air out of your cheeks that you've collected in there, you need to take a very, very quick breath through your nose. And you're able to do that because you've chopped off the back of your throat. You're not opening up your airway from your lungs into your mouth, but you can still breathe in through your nose. So as you're expelling that air from your cheeks, take a very quick breath from your nose. Now, this is a very quick movement. It's not an easy thing to do for a long time. So I would suggest that you do it quite quickly. As you're blowing the air out of your cheeks, just take a very quick sniff through your nose. If you've managed to get used to that quick sniff through your nose as your air is going out of your cheeks, then you should be able to now put that on the instrument. I'm not saying that this is going to be a light bulb moment and you're going to be able to do it straight away. There are a few other things to look out for. There's more resistance pushing air into the saxophone because there's a very, very tiny gap that we're pushing the air into. And that's what I mean by the resistance. It's going to feel a little bit like that air is going to last a little bit longer because we're pushing it through a smaller gap. So what I'm going to do is fill my cheeks with air and push that air out of my cheeks into the instrument. And that's the only air I'm going to use. I'm not going to continue pushing air from my lungs. And as I'm doing that, I'm going to take a sniff through my nose. At the minute, we're not trying to make that continuous sound. It's just this technique of blowing out of my cheeks and sniffing in through my nose. The hardest part of this technique is the moment where you need to switch between these two sets of lungs, your actual lungs and the lungs that you've created in your cheeks. And at that moment, you're going to feel there's a little bit of a blip in the sound. There's certainly going to be a little bump. The more and more you get used to that technique, the more and more you can smooth over that feeling of where that bump's going to be. Another thing is the range of the instrument that you're using. I like to choose the middle of the instrument. If I'm just practicing this technique, I like to choose the middle of the instrument because them are the notes that are going to be a little bit more easy to achieve. Don't want to be going into the extremes. You're going to need far too much air down at the bottom of the instrument, and at the top of the instrument you're not going to get the same resistance as you do with the range in the middle of the instrument. The other thing to think about is all of the time you need to be keeping a really secure embouchure, and that's another really tricky thing because when you're puffing your cheeks out, it's one of the things we're taught not to do when we first start playing the saxophone is don't puff your cheeks out because you're not going to keep that good strong embouchure. Well, to keep that good strong embouchure and puff your cheeks out is another thing that just needs a little bit of work. You're going to feel that you're going to hear that the sound quality is going to go down until you get used to how you're going to keep a good strong embouchure with them cheeks puffed out full of air. Now through that you should have been able to see my chest moving a little bit and maybe my nose flaring a little bit when I was taking that snatch breath through my nose. Now the majority of music written for woodwind and brass instruments takes into account the fact that we've got to breathe. But there are some pieces of music that do require circular breathing. If you've got a continuous phrase that can't be broken up or shouldn't be broken up, then circular breathing comes in really, really handy. There are also some specific pieces of music that ask for circular breathing. For example, on my new album Overflow, there are 2 pieces of music where I actually circular breathe. One of them is Jolly Blue, which is a Nigel Wood piece, constant quavers all the way through. And actually, when I asked Nigel to write that piece, he sent me the first draft and he didn't include the circular breathing. But as I was playing it, I had to get back to him and say, look, Nigel, this isn't going to work if we put all of these gaps in there. Would you like me to circular breathe it? He was delighted with this because you could see the concept that he had, the idea that he had with this piece. It needed to be circular breathed. So he adjusted the piece very slightly, kept continuous quavers running through there, and then I was able to circular breathe. Yes, there were moments where I could take a quick break because, like I said, this technique is quite tricky to sustain over a long amount of time, particularly when it starts getting technically difficult. Now, you'll have seen me circular breathing on the instrument for however long this video's been going on for now. I've only been playing a single note. It gets more tricky the more technical the music gets. The other piece of music on the album Overflow was the Richard Ingham piece, A Whiskey and an Anecdote. And that piece, I did actually circular breathe. If you listen to it, I circular breathe for the first 2.5 minutes of that. And the way that the piece was written, he did actually specifically ask for it. So in the instructions to the performer, there was a line in there that said the piece can be circular breathed if it's possible. And I did feel that actually exploring those different sounds, it really did need that continuous sound and continuous development without that break. I don't think it would have been a successful interpretation of that piece if I hadn't have circular breathed for that first section. I hope that made sense, and I hope that has helped you start to experiment with this great technique of circular breathing. If anything, it's a little bit of fun. Why not stick a stopwatch up and see how long you can actually hold a note for. If you've enjoyed this video, if you've enjoyed the content, please do like and subscribe to the channel. I'm hoping to put more and more content out like this. If you want to see something specific, then please do put a comment below. I do check them all the time, and I do respond to all comments that are made on these videos. So thanks very much, and I look forward to seeing you again next time. Whew. Wow, that was harder than I thought it would be.